Kia ora, g'day, welcome back once again here with part 2 of my reaction to Mel Downs, former 22 SAS Sergeant Major with Big Phil Campion on Force TV. So let's go.
Yeah, because they're not all wrong ones, are they? For sure, are they?
God almighty.
Some lovely people.
To me, it's the best place going. Stoke. And then even back on my original state, brilliant people. I know them. I can go back. They are my people, so to speak. I always go back there. But this was just a few bad apples back in there, and some people found it as like just fun, but there was a bit of hatred back then because it was a bad time when all Enoch Power was saying and all this.
Because he's whipping it up. He's whipping up the feeling, isn't he? And some people, as you know, will just go with the flow, won't they, when it comes to stuff like that?
But it's like anything. Like my dad, he was just hardworking.
What did your dad do?
He was a miner.
Okay, so he did that. He ended up doing the mining, yeah?
Yeah.
Come on, mate. That's what he said at the start. Even I remember that. He said his dad is Jamaican, come over, and he got into the mining. Hard case. But yeah, I guess there's a fair bit of information when you're interviewing people and you're trying to take things in. So I know what that's like, Big Phil. I've interviewed plenty of people and had to ask the same question, or I've asked the same question forgetting that I'd already asked it and that the answer had already been provided before.
Yeah, and this was the motherland, and he wanted, he was really patriotic.
Yeah,
he loved the royal family. He used to make me stand up every day whenever he heard the national anthem, because back then
they used to play at the end of the TV.
At the end of TV,
that's right. Yeah,
make me stand up. Yeah, or we'd be watching like an old Muhammad Ali film on a black and white TV, and at the end of it, that's when he used to let me stay up late. All the TV goes off and stand up, and
and all the sporting events, FA Cup final day.
Oh, God.
Always used to play FA Cup final day, didn't they?
So my dad, he was like this. Listen, immigration is integration. He integrated with everybody.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong. He kept his home. He had a Jamaican accent.
I just heard that immigration is integration, and his dad integrated with everybody. Man, massive respect, Mr. Downs, or Mel Downs' dad. I haven't heard the name. I didn't hear him say his dad's name if he has mentioned him, but what an awesome mindset to have, and the patriotism that he had. So coming from another country, coming from Jamaica, going to Stoke, where there are proud people. Shout out, I forget the name of the person though, who sent a message, who's also from Stoke, referred to Mel Downs as a legend here, which he is, so that was great to see. But the guy that's from Stoke, he's been living here in NZ, I think since 2008, I think was the date in there, sorry. Sorry if I got that wrong, or unless he's been here for 8 years, or 2008. For some reason, I've got 8 in my head anyway. But it's really cool. Immigration is integration. I like that. I mean, I needed to make sure that when I immigrated to Australia, that I integrated and that I looked to try to adopt as well as I could. Like, there were things that I got annoyed with, and guys that I was friends with, and still consider friends to this day, that I was lucky enough to serve with in Recon Platoon at 4RAR, would know that I had my quirks and my things that I didn't like over there. But I think that's just the same with anything. Immigration is integration. It's a good one.
Accent, and he liked to have chicken, rice, and peas now and again. But apart from that, he just integrated. He was down the pub. Oh,
because I remember you as probably the fittest human being I've ever come across in my life. Seriously, man. I remember being in Belize, and remember we were doing those extractions from it, and you was running waist deep in water with someone on his shoulder like that, and I'm like, what is he doing?
I've always
extremely fit.
Yeah, and again, that's come from my dad.
Yeah,
because he taught me the values, what you get taught in life. He used to just get on with people, good manners, pay respect, and treat everybody as you'd like to be treated.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Sorry to cut him off, but that just, for me, it just highlights why. I think I've put it in some of my replies to comments about this reaction earlier. To the first one, I said, man, like, I never knew Mel well, and we didn't do any specific jobs together when we were working in the private sector, looking after television media in and out of Baghdad. We were on 2 different contracts. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that as well. But when I met this guy, every time I met him, he was happy, he was humble, he was always positive. And just to hear him speak about his dad and what he learned from his dad, he's always respectful. Like, there was no I knew he was older than me. I knew he also had much more experience than me, but he never, man, just in my interactions with him that I was fortunate to have, very, very humble, respectful, awesome dude. And it's just cool hearing him speak about where he learnt these values from his dad. And also the patriotism that he mentioned as well, which I forgot to mention last time I paused, that his dad would make him stand up for the national anthem, I think it was. And that's cool, man. It's awesome. That says a lot. Like, that just helps for me. It answers a lot of things about this guy and why he was the way he was when I met him. Happy, humble, positive, respectful, polite. Just a good human, Mel. Thank you very much, bro. You made a lasting impression on this young fella when I met you, and we were working for the same company at that time.
And that's that, and good and bad, and that's how he always taught me. And as I said, my dad just got on with everyone, and everybody loved him then. You know, he was a typical Jamaican, get suited and booted, even if they just finished a night shift or whatever. You know, a lot of miners would go out and they'd have bits of black still under the face. No, not him. He was black anyway, so it didn't really matter. Suppose he didn't need a shower. Anyway, but he'd get washed up, get his tie on, and he'd be up the pub. He's one of them, and then every weekend it'll be like a routine. Take my mom to the club, and before you know, we got on with people, and because he got on with people, everybody loved him. And then if anybody from out the area would come in and have a go at my dad, everybody'd be sticking up for him, and that was like me. My dad just said, "Listen, you've got to stand up for yourself." One time, I was getting bullied, getting chased home as I used to most days. This is infant school, so now you're really small. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I used to think, right, here comes the bell. 30 minutes before the bell, which way do I get out of school? Serious. I was planning a mission already. I had like courses of action.
Varying your route, all that sort of stuff.
Believe it or not, I did. I said, right, so I'll go out the front gate. I thought, no, I'll go out the rear gate. I went out the front yesterday. Sometimes I used to go across the school playground, concrete playground, climb over 6-foot railings. I was only a nipper, and straight over, run
just to give people
across the road,
just to give people the slip.
Yeah, or the other way. So I don't know if he's north, south, east, west, but I'd cut it up sometimes, get out, and I'd be across the other playing fields over these 6-foot railings, and that was be it. I'd change my route, because I used to always get chased by kids, and a lot of times they get me and just like, little slap and playing around, and that's what kids are like. But I used to be that scared, I'd be actually banging on people's doors. And back then, you're talking, this is still the 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
Women would come out with the old, used to all wear the scarves, didn't they? And they say, go on, leave him alone. And then they go to me, and where are you from? I'm like, here. Because I didn't even realize I was black. He goes, what do you mean? I goes, here. No, where are you from? I'm like, here. What country? I'm like, what are you on about? It was one of them. But one time I get home, and I'm being chased by a few kids. And my dad, he was having a fag because he'd just been on nights. He got up early because he was watching. I always remember he used to get up, watch the cricket.
I haven't heard the term for a cigarette, fag, for I don't know how long. But not that it was a common thing, but I had heard it a heck of a lot more when I was growing up from other people. But far out, just to hear him mention that then, that just brought back a whole bunch of like sort of younger childhood memories. But pretty sad also, just coming back on here in terms of the need to, it's probably why he was such a good operator within the unit. But planning missions already, he's already planning his escape and evasion from school. It's sad that happened, and it's good that he can, sort of smile and laugh about it now. But yeah, the need to sort of needing to change where he's going to go. Went out the front, and I'm going to go out the back. Then I'm going to go over this wall, then over that wall, then running away, then knocking on the doors. Funny the piece about some of the people that would come out, leave him alone, go on, and then they'd be asking him, where are you from? And he's like, I'm from here. So, like, what do you mean? Like, where are you from? And he's looking at them. That's, man, must have a lot of funny memories when he's retelling it. But it definitely puts a smile on my face when I'm listening to him. Just the accent as well. But pretty sad that stuff, has ever taken place, and that it likely still happens today, albeit hopefully nowhere near as bad, but it's still disappointing that it likely still happens today.
West Indies against, say, England, so it was a black and white TV, and even if he had no sleep, he'd be watching that. But even back then, he'd have to go outside, and he's having a cigarette, and he sees me running. I thought, right, there's my dad running towards him. He's the saviour, and they've got a few kids after me. And he goes, what's wrong? And I says, well, Dad, these guys, these kids are after me. They've been bullying me and so on. But this has been going on for months before.
Yeah.
And he goes, right, go fight them. Well, you what? There's several of them. No, he goes, go fight them. And I always remember looking at him. And then he starts getting his leather belt off. Now I can smell the leather belt.
You know where it's going, don't you?
Yeah. Jamaican discipline, if you've been rude to your mom, was that belt's coming off and you were getting it. You know what I mean? That was this.
Yeah.
I thought, I'm not having that. So I start walking to these kids and looking back, Dad, and he's just watching me. These kids were thinking, what the hell is going on? And I always remember my dad saying, leave a mark on him, bite him if need be. So that was it. I go there. I started fighting with this kid, how little kids do, and the other kids were watching, must have been watching with Dad, and they were just both pushing. And next minute, I just bit one, and I heard the scream. And then he carried on, and then he ran off, and my dad starts walking over. And that was sort of the lesson to me. And then he looked at me, and, I always remember him giving the talk then. Listen, there's good and bad people in this world, and you are going to get a lot more hassle sometimes. Don't take, you've got to stand up for yourself. Never back down. And then ever since then, when I went back to school, don't get me wrong, he didn't just completely stop, but it was like, I ain't going to have a go at him because he's like a little wildcat. He's going to go back. And then my dad started teaching me boxing and all the rest of it, and making me do press-ups like every Sunday when he come back from the pub, and how many can you do on the back and stuff, just all fun things like that. What I thought was fun, but it was just getting you fit.
He's getting you into a shape.
So basically, that's what got me into the fitness and made me the person I am. So on this, no way do I blame anybody. That was just a different era. In fact, I can thank them, because out of every negative, there's a positive. And
that's my complete mantra now.
Yeah.
That's my complete mantra now. There's always a positive to be had. You know what I mean?
Because if it wasn't for them, it would maybe off the person I am, because I'm like, right, okay, I will never back down and against any bully. And I like to think I still haven't. Don't get me wrong. I've took some beatings in my life, but I won't back down.
No.
That's so awesome to hear, both of them. But hearing Mel's positive take on that, and just an example of his humility. I can thank them for that. He doesn't blame anyone. I heard him say that as well. Doesn't blame anyone for his circumstances or for what happened, or those things helped shape him to who he is, the man that he is. Obviously, his parents played a massive part in that, and that Jamaican leather belt, no doubt, helped shape some of the character traits that he has, and that type of upbringing, which is, that's just part of what happened for that period of time in his generation, like he's acknowledged. But all of that, what I'm hearing from Mao, is how grateful he is for it, and how much it shaped him into the person that he became, that he is now, and no doubt his ability to be able to transfer that on, to share that, to educate, to help uplift, inspire other people, to hopefully not have to go through that, but also to, hey, you defend yourself. You don't back down to anybody. So pretty cool to hear him talk about that. And obviously the big fella, Big Phil as well. I love how he spoke about that's his mantra now as well, that there's always a positive. And I think that's part of why I try to share that message at the end of my videos, regardless of your challenges, struggles, or trials, like, just keep turning up. There are better days ahead. Try to take that. It can be difficult to take the positives from those things during those moments, but they are there. And if we can take some time to look back and reflect, we can usually find them, although it can be hard to find them in the moment. Anyway.
No.
And so long as something's right, then you stand your ground, and that's how we are, mate.
Yeah. So the cadet thing. So you joined the cadets, didn't you? What drew you towards the cadets? When did you first start thinking about cadets and military and soldiers and all that sort of stuff?
Mate, I kid you not. My mom says, because I remember these two little Indian kids used to take me out, and this was before we moved to Bentley, because I moved from there when it was 3.5, because my parents couldn't get anywhere to live, so they had to live in a bed sit. Yeah. And she goes, you can remember this? And because I can remember different smiles, and this was in Shelton. This is about 4 miles from Bentley, but it's like a different place. It's where all the immigrants sort of settled, even though it's a few miles away.
Yeah.
You could still see the difference now, not as much. Do you get me? But this was really integral.
Yeah.
So there was Indians, Africans, Irish.
The St Mary's area of Southampton. It is. Do you know what I mean? That's where a lot of people ended up living.
Yeah,
through whatever,
and that's how
for whatever reason. Yeah,
but I can remember being there. And she goes, "How can you remember being there?" We left there when you was 3.5. But I remember this woman named Jean, and I described her to her how she used to pick me up and bring me down this balcony, holding down the handrail.
Yeah.
And I remember these two Indian boys used to take me out on the punch pram. They used to walk me, and she says, "Yeah, they did," and she knew their names. She goes, "You know, not seen them since we ever left."
That's crazy. Like, it just blows my mind that he can remember. I think he said 3.5. There's no way I'm remembering what I was doing at 3 or 4. I think it might have been Christian Craighead as well, who recalls, some of the stuff that happened to him being bullied. I think said he was 4 or 5 or something like that. Man, I'm flat out trying to remember what I did yesterday, let alone back when I was 3 or 4. But it's interesting how our brains work and what they can remember. He mentioned about he can remember certain smells, being able to describe certain people. I think he mentioned a couple of Indian lads that would take him out and around, and his mum has gone, "Wow, yeah, that's right. That is right." Because I'd be blown away too. Like, our kids come back and said that they remembered something from when they were 3 or 4. I'd be like, "No, you don't." But clearly he does, and he's convinced his mum. That's pretty incredible.
And I goes, "Yeah," but all the time they used to take me to a meat market in Hanley, a place, and I used to love getting soldiers, and they used to buy me these little soldiers, little plastic soldiers. So that was from 3.5, and then from then I was just fascinated with military. I wanted to go in the cadets. So when I was 11 years old, my mom, I always remember taking me up to the Army Cadets. "Can you join?" And they said, "Yeah, but you won't get a uniform. You have to be 13. Back then, I don't know if it's still the same, Army Cadets. But
I think they try and square them away as soon as, but they're tiny at 11 as well, aren't they? You know what I mean?
I was 11 years old. They said, "You can come, but you can't get his uniform." So I don't know if that's the same, but I couldn't have a uniform, but I could parade.
No, I think they do get one now, but anyway, regardless, you didn't. So
so I used to just like parade in my Wrangler jeans and Wrangler top at the time, and that was it. We'd be marching, and I loved every minute. That was from 11 years old, and obviously when you was 13, you got your uniform. And back then,
what cat badge were you?
It was even though it was in the Staffordshire area, I was a detachment. It was the RCT. It was like a star type.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And I always remember, even when you was 11, you didn't have the uniform, but they still let you to go on the firing range. So you had the 303, 11 type.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry, I should have paused it earlier. That's a cool picture to have of his days in the cadets, and his cap badge, uniform. Far out. Awesome. He's got 3 stripes on his arm. What the? Sergeant?
Yeah. And I always remember, even when you was 11, you didn't have the uniform, but they still let you to go on the firing range. So you had the 303 Lee Enfield, the bolt action rifle,
blunderbuss.
Yeah, what's got a kick like a mule, and as an 11-year-old, you're firing that. I'm sure in this day and age that won't be allowed. You know what I mean? At that age,
there'd be some health and safety around there.
God almighty, the rifle was bigger than me, but I loved every minute of it. And this was me. I was hooked on it because the Army Cadets, it made sense to me. You was camping, doing survival. You was marching around. That didn't make much sense, but doing the map reading, navigation, doing first aid, that was something hands-on. I really enjoyed that. I could see something out of it. Whereas school, apart from just fighting and messing about, we went, I don't blame the teachers, but it was a real rough school. No uniform or anything. And I didn't see the point in it. I couldn't.
No, it's the way. I do totally get that. Did you get any racial aggro in the cadets?
I didn't, but just small. When I say I didn't, this was back when they used to have shows on, like, I don't know, Alf Garnett and Love Thy Neighbours, and it's all this. And they used to have all these words coming out, like the N word and the C word, and so many. Yeah. And so if kids have watched that the night before, I'd be thinking, "Oh, hello, I'm going to get it."
Here we go.
Here we go. Next day, then you'd be getting called all that, all these names. And I always remember one time, and this is when I did get a bit of bullying in the Army Cadets. A guy come, and you can just see he was a bad one, and he didn't last long because of the discipline marching around. He got his uniform, and then he binned it after a few weeks. But for a few months, he made me feel like packing it in. He was a bully. And basically, he was a lot bigger and older than me, but he used to give me so much verbal abuse, him and his mate. And it was at the time when Roots, there was a show called Roots on.
That's right,
and it was
remember
called
Roots,
Kunta Kinte and Chicken George, and they used to call me all these names, and that was about the only time that I had a negative experience, but I stuck with it. And they left, and because they're useless, and then I just stayed in there doing it because I loved it. So
I love how he mentioned there, and then they left because they're useless, and he stayed because he loved it. That's awesome. I'm going to wrap this one up here. It's around about 20 minutes. I want to try to get these a little bit shorter. There's just a fair bit of moving parts at the moment, and I'll look to probably do longer reactions later on. But loving everything I've heard with regards to Mel. This is only the second bite at it so far. Respect to Big Phil for interviewing Mel, and to Mel as well, just being just an awesome human being. So both of them. So anyway, yeah, we'll leave that one there, and we'll come back to it later. Again, for anybody going through any challenges, struggles, trials, whatever those things are, obstacles that you're facing, whether it's to do with employment, relationships, friendships, studies, whatever, as hard as it may be, I just encourage you to just keep doing your best, to keep turning up, to keep staying in the fight, to just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and understand and know and trust that the sun will shine again, that there are better days ahead, that these things, this difficulty, this turmoil, for want of a better term, is only temporary. It's not going to last forever. And that if you can stay consistent and disciplined and keep moving forward, you'll reach that light at the end of the tunnel. So appreciate you all. Thank you for your time, support, encouragement. All of that means the world to me. Remember, go always a little further. Who dares wins. And until the next video, a big mana away from me, coming to you, filled with my aroha, respect, appreciation, and gratitude.